Morning, everybody. All right, so today's lesson 6.7, we're on page 263 of our textbook, and our topic is compare fractions. And it says, how can you compare fractions? So that's our essential question. So every year, Avery School has a fair. 3/8 of the booths had face painting and 1/4 of the booths had sand art. Were there more booths with face painting or sand art? So we know 3/8 of the booths had face painting, and we know 1/4 of the booths had sand art. So one way we can compare these fractions is to use a common denominator. Remember we listed multiples of the denominator and we found which one was in common. And so when two fractions have the same denominator, they have equal sized parts. So if they have equal sized parts, you just have to see which one has more of those parts. All right, so think 1/4 times what would give us a denominator of 8? 4, 8, 2, right? Okay, so 4 times 2 is 8. 2 times 1 is 2. So 2/8 is less than 3/8. So that means 1/4 is less than 3/8. So, and we can also shade that in to show that. Right? So when we have the same number of equal sized parts, all you have to do is see which one has more parts. More of those equal sized parts. This one has 3 equal sized parts of those equal sized parts, and this one has 2 of those equal sized parts. So that's one way. All right. And another way is to find a common numerator. Now, how's that helpful? Well, that tells you that you have the same number of parts. So all you have to do is compare the size of the parts. Okay, so if the denominators are different, that means you have different equal sized parts. And so the more pieces you put into a whole, the smaller the pieces are. So like when we go with 1/2 is larger than 1/3 because a third has 3 pieces in the whole, while a half only has 2. So the one that with only 2 can be bigger pieces. So when two fractions have the same numerator, they represent the same number of parts. And you can compare the size of the parts. So think here. So 3/8 already has a numerator of 3. Well, it would be easy to multiply 1 in 1/4 to get a numerator of 3. You just have to multiply by 3, right? 3 times 1 is 3, and 4 times 3 is 12. So now we would be comparing 3/8 and 3/12. So they have the same number of parts. Which one has bigger pieces? The 1/8 is bigger than a 12th. So 3/8 has to be bigger than 1/4. So 3/8, that means there's face painting in that question. Okay, so that's 2 of the ways. And the other one, remember, we just talked about that yesterday, is comparing to a half. And now, we wouldn't use compare a half here because they're both only one part away from a half. If I added one more to the numerator here, I'd get 4/8, which is half. But if I added one more to the 1/4, they would also be 1/2. So they're too close to 1/2 each to do it to compare to 1/2. So we want to find either a common numerator or a common denominator. All right, so we need a couple methods in order to compare. All right, so let's move on. All right, compare the fractions and explain your reasoning. Okay, well, when I look here, 3/4 is greater than 1/2, right? 2/4 is half. 3/4 is bigger than that. 1/3 is less than 1/2. So I'm just going to compare using the benchmark half. So 3/4 is larger than 1/3. 3/4 is greater than 1/2. And 1/3 is less than 1/2. So 3/4 has to be greater than 1/3. Okay. 3/5 and 3/8. Well, I notice that they both have the same numerator. So which pieces are bigger? 5 is less than 8. So when we talk about denominators, the smaller the value, the bigger the pieces. So the numerators are the same. So I can compare the size of the equal pieces. A fifth is greater than an eighth. So 3/5 is greater than 3/8. All right, 3/4 and 7/8. Well, it's not easy to get a common numerator. I can't use half as a benchmark because they're both one part past a half. So it's a little difficult. I'm sorry. They're both they're both only one part away from being a whole. Okay, and so that may be a little difficult to compare. But I can easily make common denominators, right? So I can think 3/4 times what would give me eighths, halves, twos. I'm sorry, twos. 4 times 2 is 8. 3 times 2 is 6. Now we compare 6/8 and 7/8. 6/8 is less. So that means 3/4 is less than 7/8. I can find, what did I do? I found common denominators. By multiplying 3/4 by 2 over 2 to get 6/8. 6/8 is less than 7/8. So 3/4 is less than 7/8. All right, 4/5 and 2/3. Well, common denominators is a little more difficult in this one, but it's easy to make common numerators. So I'm just going to think 2/3 times what would give me the same numerator of 4. 2, right? So I'm going to multiply both the numerator and denominator by 2. 2 times 2 is 4, and 3 times 2 is 6. All right, so now we're comparing 4/5 and 4/6. The smaller the denominator, the larger the pieces. So they both have 4 pieces, but the fifth size pieces are larger. All right, so in my explanation, I found a common numerator. If I multiplied 2/3 by 2 over 2, it gave me 4/6. Then I compared 4/6 to 4/5. I know that a fifth is larger than a sixth, so 4/5 is larger than 4/6. Therefore, 4/5 is greater than 2/3. Which would you use to compare 11/12 and 5/6? A common numerator or a common denominator? Okay, so 5 times what gives you 11? Not much, right? At least not a whole number. So it's easier to get to a denominator, common denominator. It is easier to find a common denominator. Just multiply 5/6 by 2 over 2 to get 10/12. Okay. Can you use simplest form to compare 8/10 and 3/5? Well, let's see. Simplest form. 3 is a prime number. 5 is a prime number. So this is as simple as we can make 3/5. But 8/10, those are both even numbers. So I can divide both 8 and 10 by 2. 8 divided by 2 is 4, and 10 divided by 2 is 5. Well, now we're just comparing 4/5 to 3/5. Well, that's easy. Now we have common denominators. So, yes, if you use simplest form to reduce 8/10 to 4/5, you would have common denominators. Okay. Once we have common denominators, easy to compare. All right, compare 2/5 and 1/10. So let's find a common denominator. Use 10 as a common denominator. 2/5 times what would give us 10? Well, 2 over 2, right? 5 times 2 is 10. 2 times 2 is 10. So 4/10 and 1/10. 4/10 size parts are greater than 1/10 size part. So 2/5 has to be bigger than 1/10. All right, 2. Compare 6/10 and 3/4. And it's going to be easy to get a common numerator because I can multiply the 3 and 3/4 by 2 to get 6. So I'm going to put 6 there. I'm going to rewrite 3/4. And I'm just going to multiply the numerator and denominator both by 2. And 4 times 2 is 8. So now we have 6/8 and 6/10. The sixes are the same. An eighth has bigger pieces than a tenth. Okay. Once again, the smaller the denominator, the bigger the piece, or the bigger the value. So a tenth size part is less than an eighth size part. So 6/10 is less than 3/4. Right, less than, greater than, or equal. Well, the denominators are the same, so all we have to do is see which one has more parts. 7 is greater than 2. 5/12, 3/6. I can use 1/2 or a common denominator here because 3/6 is half, right? Half of 6 is 3. Half of 12 is 5. Half of 12 is 6. 5/12 is less than 6/12. So that means 5/12 is less than a half. 4/10 and 6/10. Well, the numerators are the same, so compare the size of the denominators, or the size of the equal size parts. A sixth is bigger than a tenth. Well, we can use 1/2 here, where you could find a common denominator, or you could find a common numerator. All three of those are easy. Half of 12 is 6. Half of 4 is 2. Those are both halves. Those are equal to each other. 7. 1/3, 1/4. Same numerators. Compare the size of the parts. The smaller the denominator, the bigger the pieces. So 1/3 is larger than 1/4. 4/5, 8/10. Well, let's find common denominator. So 4/5 times what would give me a tenth? 2/2. 5 times 2 is 10. 4 times 2 is 8. 8/10 is equal to 8/10. So 4/5 is equal to 8/10. 3/4 and 2/6. I can use comparing to a half here. Okay? Because half of 6 is 3/6. So 2/6 is less than a half. 3/4, that's greater than a half because 2/4 is 1/2. So 3/4 is larger. 1/2 and 5/8. I can use the benchmark 1/2 for this one because what's half of 8? 4. So 5/8 is greater than 1/2. So if 5/8 is greater than 1/2, it's got to be bigger than 1/2. Number 11. 3/10, 2/4. I'm just going to use 1/2 again. 2/4 is 1/2. Half of 10 is 5. That's less than 1/2. 75 100ths and 8/10. Well, it's easy to turn the tenths into hundreds, isn't it? 8/10 times what would give me 100? 10. We should know that 10 times 10 is 100. And 10 times 8 is 80. So 80 100ths compared to 75 100ths. So that would make 75 100ths less than 8/10. Okay. 4/6, 2/3. Well, I'm going to use common denominators here. I could have used common numerators. Okay, so we have 4/6, 4/6. Oh, those are equal to each other. I guess I could have used simplify too. I could use simplest form for 4/6. All right, number 14. Okay, this is just like number 12. So let's find a common denominator. by multiplying 3 tenths by 10 over 10. 10 over 10 is 100. 3 times 10 is 30. Well, 30 100ths is a lot bigger than 4 100ths. So 3 tenths has to be bigger than 4 100ths. All right, find a number that makes this statement true. I need a number that makes 1/2 bigger than a third. Well, 1 would make that true because 1/3 is less than a half. 3 tenths less than a fifth. Well, what can I multiply a fifth by to get a tenth? Whoops. To get a tenth. 2, right? So 5 times 2 is 10. So I need a number that when I multiply by 2, I'm going to get something less than 3. 1 is the best answer. So I'm going to say 1/5 is... No, sorry, I read that backwards. Okay. I looked at that incorrectly. I need to multiply the 2 2's by something that would give me something bigger than 3. So not 1, but 2 would work. So 4. Sorry. 2/5. 3 tenths is less than 2 tenths. 2/5. Okay, we're multiplying 2/5 by 2 over 2 to get a common denominator of 10. 2 times 2 would give me 4, which makes 4 tenths greater than 3 tenths. Okay? So 2/5 is greater than 3 tenths. All right. On number 17, we want to multiply a third by something that would give me 12ths. Well, I know it has to be 4, right? 4 times 3 is 12. Now, 5/12 is less than this. If I multiply by 1, that would make 5/12 greater because I would have 4/12. So that's not true. But if I make it a 2, 2 times 4 is 8. So 5/12 would be less than 8/12. So we can have 2/3 there. Okay. Two-thirds is greater than 4 something. So it's easy to get a common numerator. So 2/3 times what would give me something over 4? 4 over something. 2 times 2 is 4. So whatever I do to the numerator, I have to do to the denominator. And 3 times 2 is 6. So that would make it equal, right? If I multiply 2/3 by 2 over 2, that would give me 4/6. So those would be equal. So I can't have 4/6. So if we have to have a value that's going to be smaller than 2/3. Okay. Right now, if I multiply by 2 over 2, 2/3 would have the same numerator as the 4, which would make this 4/6, but that's equal. Okay. So if we increase that and make it 4/7, then 4/6 would be greater than 4/7 because the denominator is smaller than the 7. And the smaller the denominator, the larger the value. So 2/3 would be greater than 4/7. I could also say 2/3 is greater than 4/8, and so on. Okay. (19) Jerry is making a strawberry smoothie. Which measure is greatest? The amount of milk, cottage cheese, or strawberries? And so these are his ingredients. He has 3 ice cubes, 3/4 cup milk, 2/6 cup cottage cheese, a 1/12 cup of strawberries, a fourth teaspoon of vanilla, and an eighth teaspoon of sugar. And he wants to know milk, cottage cheese, or strawberries. So we're going to compare those 3 numbers. What do we need to find? Remember, the question is what we need to find. Which measure is greatest? Milk, cottage cheese, or strawberries? How will you find the answer? I'm going to compare by finding a common denominator. Okay. So we have 3/4, 2/6, 8/12. So I'm going to list the multiples of 4. Okay. Then I'm going to list the multiples of 6. And last 12. 12, 20. Actually, I'm going to stop right there because I see that 12 is in common to all 3. So I'm going to turn all of these into 12 so I can compare them easily. So 3/4 I'd have to multiply by 1, 2, 3. And that would give me 9/12. The 6th I'd have to multiply by 2. That would give me 4/12. And the 8/12 is already 12ths. Okay, so now, which one is the greatest? 9/12, 4/12, 8/12. Well, the 9 is the biggest. So 3/4. Jerry needs more milk than the other 2 ingredients. Number 20. Angie, Blake, Carlos, and Daisy went running. Angie ran 1/3 mile. Blake ran 3/5 of a mile. Carlos ran 7/10 of a mile. And Daisy ran 1/2 a mile. Which runner ran the shortest distance? Who ran the greatest? All right, so Angie, 1/3. That's less than half, right? Okay. Blake ran 3/5. That's greater than 1/2. Carlos ran 7/10. That's greater than 1/2. And Daisy ran exactly 1/2. Okay, so this is not a difficult problem to do at all. Carlos did not run less than half a mile. Daisy ran half a mile. So Daisy was less than Carlos. So Carlos is not the shortest, that's for sure. Okay, Blake ran more than half a mile because half of 5 would be 2.5. Angie did not even run half a mile. So the shortest distance was Angie. Greatest distance. Okay, so I know Angie's not the greatest distance. And I also know it's not Daisy, because she ran exactly a half, and Blake and Carlos both ran more. So we can go 3/5 times what would give me 10? 2 over 2. So Blake ran 6/10 of a mile. Carlos ran 7/10 of a mile. So Carlos. Elaine bought 5/8 pound of potato salad and 4/6 pound of macaroni. Use the numbers to compare the amounts of potato salad and macaroni salad Elaine bought. So she bought 5/8 pound potato salad, 4/6 pound of macaroni. We're going to compare the amounts of potato salad. And macaroni. Oh, okay. So 5/8. I don't want to write anything in these boxes yet till I figure out which one's the smaller one. All right. Well, they're both 1 part bigger than 1/2, so I don't want to compare to 1/2. So neither one is really easy to find a common denominator or a common numerator. So I'm just going to go ahead and find a common denominator by listing multiples of 6 and 8. So 6, 12, 18, 24, 30, 36. I'll stop there. 8, 16, 24. Okay, so I can stop there because 24s are in common. All right, so 5/8 times 3 over 3, right? I have to multiply the 8 by 3 over 3 to get 24. That would give me 15 24ths. And the 6ths, I have to multiply by 1, 2, 3, 4 over 4. And that would give me 16 24ths. So you see how close they are. So the 15 24ths is less. So 5/8 is slightly less than 4/6. Okay. So that's it for lesson 6.7. In our next lesson, we're going to continue to compare and order fractions. So until our next lesson, may the numbers always be in your favor.